The silent night was broken by the shrill touch of the phone, causing her to startle. The voice on the other end of the line was painfully familiar. Her ex-husband demanded something absurd, that she welcome her mother-in-law, otherwise she would have to pay a caregiver for 5,000. Half an hour later, he was already at his door, pushing a wheelchair, as if the divorce had never existed between them. But let's get down to business, dear listeners. It is with great satisfaction that I get them here today to share a story that will mess with their emotions. Get ready for a narrative that touches the soul deep. 2 years had passed since that last dialogue, but Lemilla still remembered every detail of Dimitri's expression as he squirmed at the bedroom door, avoiding looking at her. His things were thrown anyway in a sports bag, as if it were just a business trip, not a definitive farewell towards another woman's arms. Lemilla, understand it's not your fault. His voice sounded muffled, loaded with poorly disguised guilt. With Marina, it all happened naturally. You are not any fault. Finally, he looked up and came across his wife's gaze. She was sitting on the edge of the bed who once chose together, the white fingers so tight in the comforter. How long? It was all that managed to ask. What? He hesitated, lowering his head. 3 months while you went to the hospital to visit your mother. The silence that followed was more eloquent than any answer. Lemilla slowly dropped the air, as if she kicked her weight out of her chest. Outside the door, a rustle was heard. Emilia Stepanovna, her mother-in-law, clearly spying on the conversation. Misha, the authoritarian voice echoed through the hall. The Marinina is waiting for you down there. Why is it taking so long? Dmitri shuddered, like a doll whose ropes were suddenly pulled. I'm going, Mom. His mother-in-law appeared on the doorway, impeccably arranged at home, perfect hair, living red lipstick, earrings, and gold rings. He gave a cold look at the daughter-in-law. Well, Lemilla, life is like this. It's no use doing scene. If you didn't know how to hold your man, it's because it wasn't meant to be. Ludmilla didn't answer. Something inside her broke and froze, as if the gears of the clock had suddenly stopped. Dmitri took the bag and left the room, avoiding any contact, as if she could burn it. Hours later, Amelia Stepanovna got cups on the kitchen table while her friends neighboring, former Kokins, known from the church choir, entered one after another. Stepanovna, how did this happen? Asked Galina Petrovna, a robust woman with curly gray hair. They looked so united. They never fought. Amelia straightened, as if she were on a stage. Ah, my dear, if you knew what I had to put up with this girl. She lifted her hands on a theatrical gesture. My Midina came home hungry. She couldn't cook anything. I would take pots of borscht, meatballs, pastels while she was content with instant noodles. It can't be, exclaimed Tamara, using tea. It seemed so attached. Bandy, Amelia Stepanovna sat at the table, lowering her voice to a dramatic whisper. He earned crumbs in any office, pushing papers, while my son, who is a bank deputy man between us, deserved a woman at his height. And Marinina, oh, she's something else. Financial analyst, crib family, impeccable education. Ludmilla heard every word as she tidied her things in her room. The door had been purposely left ajar. And where is your daughter-in-law? Where is it? Asked Tamara, curious. From the countryside, answered the mother-in-law, with pleasure in the voice. Dad driver of tractor, mother nurse. No creation, without class. I always told Misha, it's not your level, but he's too good. It was sorry for her. The moles here shook their heads in solidarity, as if Amelia were a martyr for having endured such unworthiness. Lemilla closed the suitcase. It took only the essentials, clothes, documents, some photos of the parents and books I loved. The makeup was thrown without ceremony in a bag apart. The wedding photos were left behind. May they do whatever they wanted with them. When he left the room with his suitcase, the buzz in the kitchen ceased instantly. 6 pairs of eyes turned to her, eager for drama. Do you leave? Amelia Stepanovna emerged in the hallway, wiping her hands on a cloth. I thought you would stay until tomorrow. I see no reason, said Ludmilla, wearing the coat. The mother-in-law leaned against the stop, crossing her arms, a poorly disguised smile on her lips. And it is doing very well. Finally, our family will have a worthy woman. No, she took a significant break. Ludmilla broke down her coat and straightened. Where is Dmitri? I wanted to say goodbye. He is with Marinina, arranging the new house. Emphasized the last word. I'm even helping to transport his things. Marinina is so efficient. Even made a list of what they need to buy for their home. At this point, the guests left the kitchen, eager not to lose the outcome. My daughter, don't be like this, said Anna Georgievna, a former teacher. You are still young. You will find another man. That's right, supported Galina Petrovna. Just don't forget to cook better next time. Men are achieved by the stomach. You know how it is. Ludmilla took the suitcase silent. Only then did you notice that Amelia Stepanovna had exchanged her clothes. wearing a new dress, saved for special occasions. A celebration. See you soon, Ludmilla said, opening the front door. Good luck, song the mother-in-law, almost cheerful. Leave the keys. Misha will change the locks anyway. Ludmilla left the keys over the entrance furniture and left without looking back. He thought he heard laughs behind him, or was it imagination outside? He spotted Dimitri's car stopped in front of the building. He was next door, helping to carry his things. Beside her, an impeccable blonde with an expensive coat and perfect nails. Seating her, Dimitri turned her face, pretending not to realize. Dina, called Ludmilla. He turned, reluctantly. Are you leaving? Yes. I wanted to talk about the money we saved together. He stammered. It's just that it's complicated. There's the car's financing. My mother's birthday. Let's talk later. Midinette, you take time, called the blonde of the car. We still need to pass the market. Your mother gave a list of what to buy. I'm going. Mary, he answered. Ludmilla squeezed the bag of the suitcase until the fingers were white. Dima, he whispered, are you not ashamed? Look, without drama, okay? He frowned. I compensate everything later. I swear. On the third floor, the silhouette of Amelia Stepanovna watched the scene through the window. Dimitri got into the hasty car. Thanks, Ludmilla. Good luck. The vehicle tore off, throwing water from the pool toward it. She stood, looking at the headlights to move away until they disappeared from sight. 3 days later, Ludmilla was in a tiny and rented apartment on the outskirts of the city. The only advantage was to be able to walk for work in 20 minutes. The phone remained mute. Dimitri didn't care once. Common friends also disappeared, as if it had been erased from the past. Only at night the cell phone rang. It was Theta, his only friend since school. How are you? He asked bluntly. Alive? Ludmilla's response was dry, almost mechanical. He heard Sveta tell, with a voice loaded with indignation, like Lenka, that gossip on duty spread around that Amelia, her former maid, missed the opportunity to brag about her son's perfect choice. They have been holding hands from the first day. Not like you two, Lenka had repeated, with a smile of superiority. Ludmilla remained silent, her eyes fixed in the window of the apartment of others, in the empty children's playground, in the life that now seemed as far as those peeled walls. Do you want me to go there? We talk. Take some tea, insisted Sveta. No need, cut Ludmilla, softly. I need to be alone. Don't sink. Huh? That passes. The silence on the phone weighed like lead. Then suddenly, as if the words were released without permission, she says I can't cook. Sveta must have felt the poison in her friend's voice, because she sighed deep. Ah, Lud, do you remember how Dimitri devoured his Blythes? He took hours in the kitchen on Sundays at dawn, just to do for him, and this witch threw away his rubbers and brought hers. She never liked me. Ludmilla squeezed her cell phone against her ear, as if she wanted to crush her memory. For her, I wasn't a woman. It was an obstacle. I wanted a doll to dress her son, not a person. And you know what's worse? Her voice trembled, but not crying, something colder, more dangerous. When I left, I didn't cry, as if everything inside me had frozen. Now I feel like she's right, as if I'm not good enough. Stop it, exploded Sveta. Are you swallowing her poison? This shot wanted you out since day one, and you're Dimitri. A rag, that let the mother decide for him. Now that you turn with such Marina. Ludmilla laughed a low, unexpected sound, almost strange after days of muteness. Do you know when I left the building? Amelia Stepanovna was in that silk dress I kept for Easter. The best of her, as if it were a funeral or a coronation. Old bitch, spitted Sveta. But do you know something? Something in Ludmilla's voice had changed, hardened. I will still make her remember this dress. And everything else. Outside, a thin rain began to fall, drumming on the eave like impatient fingers. The drops washed the dust of the city, dragging with it the tracks of the past. Ludmilla watched the water lines run down the glass and felt something move inside her. No pain. I can't miss it. But a cold and crystal clear certainty. That wasn't an end. It was the first blow of a hammer against the current that held it. Amelia Stepanovna didn't know yet, but as she pushed her daughter-in-law, she had triggered a mechanism. And mechanisms, Ludmilla now understood, have a habit of returning. The elevator doors opened on the business center floor, and she left with the tight document folder against the body, the jumps echoing in the polished hallway. 6 months had passed since the tiny apartment, since the night and the light listening to the silence of the cell phone. Now the reflection on the reception glass showed a different woman, well-cut suits, impeccable hair, a smile that didn't ask for permission. Good morning, Ludmilla Andreevna, greeted her the secretary, with a genuine smile. Oleg Viktorovich is waiting for you. The Mercury project documents are already with him. Anya, always efficient. Everything ready, said Ludmilla, adjusting the new blazer lapel, not the most expensive of the store, but impeccable. as everything in her life now. He could afford to choose quality, not only price. The meeting was impeccable. Oleg Viktorovich flipped the reports with an approval nod. Your numbers are excellent, Ludmilla continued, and in 2 months we talked about a promotion. She nodded, keeping the information as an asset. At night, on the way back, Ludmilla reflected on how life had turned inside out, or, better, straightened. The divorce, which should have been its end, had revealed a door that Amelia Stefanovna, in her arrogance, had helped open. He stopped at the supermarket and left with a lightweight bag, a cut of noble meat, fresh vegetables. Today I would have dinner of wine, watered with wine, not the cheaper, not what you could take, but what would give you pleasure. No look at reprobation, with no minute accounts to justify. Ludmilla, the voice made her rotate in the middle of the sidewalk. Dmitri, standing next to a crowded cart, the expression a mix of guilt and curiosity. Beside, the blonde Marina, hitting her foot on the asphalt with poorly disguised impatience. Hi, said Ludmilla dryly, tightening the bag more. How are you? He seemed uncomfortable, his eyes sliding down his suit, his shoes, as if he tried to reconcile the image before him with the woman he had left behind. Great, thank you. Lie by omission. It was not great. It was better. And you? Shopping. Dmitri stammered. The mother asked for a list. Marina rolled her eyes, almost imperceptibly, but Ludmilla captured. Misha, we are late, cut the blonde, with a tone that left no room for discussion. Your mother has called twice. Yes, yes, let's go. He rushed to agree, like a boy caught in the act. It's different. Beautiful. Ludmilla just answered and went on, without looking back. Only when the sign was closed did it allow it to take a deep breath, feeling the heart beating them old. They looked tense. Marina, irritated and exhausted. Dmitri, the same as usual when the mother went into the scene, guilty and cowardly. The honey has already soured, he thought. Amelia Stefanovna devours everything, even the children she thinks protects. A week later, they found her, this time, in the mall. Dmitri spoke on the phone, clearly to his mother. Yes, mother, it's the blue curtains, as you asked. No, Marina agreed. Marina, a few steps ahead, flipped down with a grimace of disguised disgust. Upon seeing Ludmilla, he made him an almost imperceptible nod, not a compliance, but a recognition, as if to say, I know exactly why you're smiling. Ludmilla pretended not to see and went to the decoration section. Her apartment, once an impersonal cubicle, gained shape, pillows, paintings, a dining table where she decided the menu. Amelia now sends the piece, he reflected, choosing a tell game. It was not revenge. It was poetic, just as when he left, he heard Marina's shrill voice. I won't be accountable to your mother every day, Dmitri. We are adults. Ludmilla could not avoid. She turned. The couple argued with a showcase, oblivious to the world. She just wants to help, he murmured, as always. Help? She wants control. Today was the pint. Tomorrow will be my life. Marina was furious. She arrived yesterday without warning, tasted my food, and said she was wrong. I brought hers. As if I was a little child. Dmitri turned and bumped into Ludmilla's eyes. For a second, she saw the panic in him, not for her, but from what her presence represented, a mirror, a reminder that stories are repeated. Come on, Misha, said Marina, dragging him by the arm, or your mother will disinherit you too. Ludmilla didn't wait to see more. He walked to the exit, the smile growing up with each step. Spring had given way to summer, and with it a simple truth. Amelia Stefanovna was like those April rains that destroyed everything on the way, but only fertilizes the ground to what would come later. The next day, Ludmilla called her mother. I got the promotion. And Mommy, I'm going to take a vacation. Just me, the son, and a book. On the other hand, the laughter of those who always knew that blind daughters do not become sheep. Finally, my girl, you deserve it. After work, he entered the travel agency and pointed to a leaflet. I want this. Sweet with the sea. The attendant smiled. Great choice. Ludmilla signed the contract without hesitation. While waiting for the card to be approved, he looked at the showcase. The city was sealing, indifferent to small domestic wars. The world's Amelia's. She was no longer a piece on anyone's board. And that, he thought, was just the beginning. 2 weeks reserved in a small hotel by the sea, away from the weight of other expectations. For the first time in years, Ludmilla felt the taste of purity without negotiations, without concessions, without mumbling the disapproving of Amelia Stepanovna echoing in his thoughts. While the attendant finished the documents, he asked, almost out of obligation, go with her husband. Ludmilla lifted her eyes, serene. No, alone. And by saying that word, he realized that it no longer hurt. Alone now meant free. The sea was exactly as he had dreamed. Warm blue. Warm, with a soft breeze that brought the salty smell of algae. Every morning she swam to where the waves allowed, let the sun brown her skin, walked down the edge without haste. For the first time in years, I breathed without tightness in the chest. At night, I posted photos on the networks, the sunset reflecting on the water, herself in the new bikini, colorful dishes of local cuisine, not to prove anything to anyone, but because happiness, when it is authentic, asks to be shared. On the third day, a message from SSSO. I saw your photos. You are stunning. Your former maid is showing to everyone and saying, look, you are alone. See what you give. But you are jealous. Yes. Ludmilla smiled and sent a selfie with the sea in the background. That envy. That was just the beginning. Back in town, tan and renewed, she plunged into work with an energy that drew attention to the direction. His department hit historical goals, and his name was praised at a general meeting. The rented apartment, once a provisional refuge, gained shape under his hands. Walls with modern geometric patterns, functional furniture, green plants in the windows. No heavy curtains like those that Emilia Stepanovna imposed. No massive furniture to take up space and suffocate light. Everything there was your choice. Until, one night, upon returning from the gym, he spotted Dmitri, sitting alone on a park bench, curved over his cell phone, with deep dark circles and an air of those who carried the world on his back. Ludmilla hesitated, but something made her stop. Hi, he said, approaching. He was startled, raised his face. Ah, Ludmilla, hi. An uncomfortable smile. Are you okay? You rested at the sea? Yes, and you? Dmitri shrugged. Normal. Working, as always. And Marina? She hardly asked, but curiosity was stronger. He sighed, ran his hand on his face. We fought. She went to a friend's house. Ludmilla already knew the answer, but she asked, why? Mother, the word fell like a stone. Your mother can be demanding, and Marina thinks she gets too much. I understand. Ludmilla nodded, sitting next to him. Do you really understand? Dmitri looked at her with a flash of hope. You know my mother. She just wants the best. Who? Dima. For you? For Marina? Or for herself? He lowered his head. At that moment, the cell phone rang. It's Mom, she read on the display. I have to go. I'm glad to see you, said Ludmilla, sincere. As he walked away, he hunches under the weight of a life that was not yet yours. She felt something unexpected, not angry, no resentment, but a light, almost maternal feather. He was still in the cage. She had found the key. Lucky, Emilia Stepanovna said to her friends, serving tea with Pyrjaks. This girl has been alone. Now he does what he wants. He travels alone. What a shame. Right woman thinks is the family. Galina Petrovna, curious, spied Ludmilla's photos on the networks. But she's not doing anything too much. Stepanovna, it's just resting. Exactly. The hostess hit the teapot on the table with an emphasis. Instead of taking care of husband, children, only thinks of her. I always knew she was selfish. What about Dmitri? How are you with a new wife? Asked Tamara, taking a Pyrjak. Emilia Stepanovna's face hardened for a second. Wonderful. Of course every couple has their adjustments. But Marinachka is just a little stubborn. I the guide. Guide? Galina Petrovna arched her eyebrow. I teach to be a good housewife. Cooking like Dmitri likes, organizing her life straight. Women exchanged OLH Aries. They had all heard rumors of how Marina in the supermarket ragged to her husband. I'm not your mother's maid. And aren't you afraid that she leaves too? Risked Anna Georgievna. Emilia Stepanovna squeezed her lips. Who's happy won't go. Annichka. And I just want happiness to my son and for this girl. Of course. Calculated pause. Some women don't know how to recognize their luck. In October, Ludmilla bumped into Marina in a coffee shop near the office. The other was alone, staring at the notebook screen, the cold coffee. Ludmilla hesitated, but approached. Can I sit down? Marina looked up, surprised. Then he nodded. They spoke of time, work, until silence was unsustainable. Look, I need to apologize. Marina released, beating her nervous fingers on the table. I had no idea what you went through. With Emilia Stepanovna. With everything. Ludmilla did not interrupt, left the space for her to continue. She's unbearable. Marina confessed softly. Every day is supervision, criticism, order. Nothing is good. And Dmitri, he just silences. He says I have to understand his mother. I know well. Ludmilla agreed with a nod. How did you endure so long? Marina looked at her genuinely intrigued. I don't know, admitted Ludmilla. I think because I believed it should, that a good wife supports her mother-in-law no matter what happens. I can't. Marina shook her head. I already spoke to Dmitri. Either we live our lives or end. And he said you will try to talk to your mother. Marina laughed, bitter, for the 100th time. They were silent, each dipped in their thoughts. You know, Ludmilla broke the silence. This may sound strange, but I'm grateful to you both. Grateful. Why? Because they helped me free me. A quiet smile. If it wasn't for you, maybe I was still in that cage. Marina turned the cup between her fingers, thoughtful. And it seems I just got into her. A year and a half had passed since Lamilla left Dmitri's apartment and Amelia Stepanovna's shadow. At that time, not only consolidated his position as a senior manager, but began to raise money for his own property. The rent, once a palliative, had become his corner, walls with his personality, furniture he chose, plants that watered with love. But she knew it was time to think about the future, consulted brokers, studied credit lines, visited neighborhoods. On a Saturday, he invited her to a girls' night, wine, laughs, confidences. In addition to them, they were Irina and Natasha, friends in common. "How are you?" asked Irina as soon as they settled in the cozy coffee shop. "Great," said Ludmilla, her eyes shining, thinking about buying an apartment. "Wow, what a step," approved Natasha. "What about love life?" "Any suitor," Ludmilla laughed, denying her head. "For now, no. And it doesn't bother me at all. I'm very well. And the Dmitri?" Irina risked cautiously. "Do you talk about it?" "No. We cross sometimes in the city, but we don't exchange words. I saw him," interrupted SSSO, excited. "Last week, at the mall with Marina," Svetlana finished, her eyes shining with the news. "I think they reconciled each other. She had a ring." "Yes, they got married a month ago," confirmed Lydia, nodding. "Marina wrote me she wrote you?" Natasha arched her eyebrows, surprised, while Lydia shrugged. "Sometimes we talk. She has no one here. All relatives are in another city, and in a way, we were mischief, or we were." "And Amelia Stepanovna?" asked Irina, with a tone of misguided curiosity. "Do you keep terrifying the daughter-in-law?" "According to Marina, it's a little better," Lydia replied. "They rented an apartment away from the center, so that Amelia does not arrive so easily. Of course she's not happy, but what to Donna Tachi did not resist. And you're not afraid Marina to take away your next husband too?" "Joked?" "Just half." Lydia laughed. "Sincere colon no. I think a husband in this family is enough for her, and I doubt Dmitri wants a replay." The laughs echoed, and the conversation flowed to other subjects. Then they walked around the city at night, entered cafes, talked about work, plans, dreams. Lydia realized, for the first time in a long time, that he could simply live the moment without worrying about what the mother-in-law would say, without measuring every word so as not to hurt Dmitri. Upon returning home, he reflected on how his life had changed that year and a half. From that insecure and frightened woman, she had become an independent, confident, who knew her value. "Thank you, Amelia Stepanovna," he whispered mentally, opening the apartment door. "If it wasn't for you, I would never have discovered what I am able to." She did not know that very soon fate would put her face to face with her former mate again in circumstances that no one could predict. One night, after an exhaustive day at work, Lydia noticed several lost calls of an unknown number. Usually, I would ignore, but something in intuition made her hesitate. When the phone rang again, answered without thinking, hell on the other side, Marina's voice sounded strange, as if she was crying. Lydia, sorry to bother so late. What happened?" She tensioned herself, stopping in the middle of the sidewalk. "Amelia Stepanovna had a stroke. It is in the hospital, in the ICU." Lydia was silent, not knowing what to feel. The news did not move it deeply, but it could not rejoice in the suffering of others. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "Is Dmitri with her?" "Yes. It hasn't left the hospital for 2 days." Exhaustion transpirated into each word. "Doctors say the state is severe but stable. I just thought you should know." "Thank you for warning me." Lydia thanked me. "Sincere if you need something I know." Marina cut, with a sigh. "Thanks." As he turned off, Lydia slowly went home. A strange feeling invaded it. It was no triumph or mercy. Something between the two, closer to a philosophical understanding of how life weaves its ironies. Amelia Stepanovna, who had always controlled everything, was now at the mercy of a relentless disease. A week later, Marina called again. She left the ICU. It improved, but the right side was paralyzed. "Dmitri is exhausted," he confessed. "Doctors talk about long rehab, but a caregiver costs a fortune and we don't have that money." "You can request a disability benefit to her," Lydia suggested. "It's not fast, but it helps. We have tried, but the bureaucracy is slow." Marina sighed. "And now she'll have to live with us." "You're welcome." Lydia imagined. He knew very well what Amelia Stepanovna was able to do when she was healthy. What would it be like now? Dependent. A month passed. Lydia avoided thinking about the former maid and those problems that were no longer his own. Life followed. Work, plans to buy your own apartment, weekends with friends. Until, one day, while having coffee with Svetlana, he spotted a family figure. "It's Dmitri," he murmured, without taking his eyes off him. He seemed pierced, dug face, deep dark circles, wrinkled clothes, as if he had slept wearing them. Beside Marina was equally exhausted, the look erased. "Let's go." Svetlana pulled her by the arm. "There is nothing left but bump into." Then, wait. The idiot couldn't move. Something in Dimitri's expression made her feel a tightness in her chest. It was not love, this feeling had died a long time ago, but a human, pure compassion. Marina was the first to notice them. He nodded, said something to Dimitri, who turned. His face was a mixture of shame and a silent despair. "Hello," he greeted when Lydia approached. "There's how much hast us to low," she said, looking at them. "How is Amelia Stepanovna?" "Evil." Dimitri ran a hand over her hair. "Wretched. Doctors say it's a matter of time, but she doesn't want to fight, refuses the exercises, barely speak, just complain and demands," Marina added, bitter, "and cries when you think no one sees. I heard she's living with you." Lydia asked cautiously. Dimitri nodded. "We changed all the furniture to put her bed in the living room. It's been a week." He looked to the side, as if seeking words. "And doctors, is there hope of recovery?" "They say yes, with proper rehabilitation." Marina sighed. "But that requires constant time and care. And we both worked. I took off without salaries," added Dimitri, "but the money is running out. A caregiver costs more than my salary and her apartment," suggested Lydia. "You can rent it." "We thought about it," Dimitri admitted, "but it needs reform, and the documents are not in order. My mother took care of everything, and now—" He paused now at silence. Lydia watched those two, the same ones who had once caused her so much pain and saw only broken, lost people. "I need to go," he said finally. "I wish you improved for your mother." When they left, Svetlana stared at her. "Severe, don't tell me you're feeling sorry for them." "I don't say." Lydia smiled, evasive. "But that doesn't mean you don't feel. You're too good." Svetlana shook her head. "That which reaped what she planted. How life goes around." Lydia did not answer. Before, it might agree, but now, those words sounded too cruel. 2 weeks later, almost at bedtime, someone knocked on his door. When opening, he froze. Dimitri was there, her face swollen, her eyes red, as if she had cried. "Lydia." His voice was hoarse. "Sorry for the time. I had no more to turn to. What happened?" She let him in, feeling the knot in the stomach tighten. Marina left. He collapsed in a chair at the entrance, made the bags and left. "He said he had not signed to be a caregiver, and your mother—" Lydia was tensioned. "It is down there in the car." Dimitri raised his eyes, full of despair. His gaze was empty, as if all certainties had collapsed at once. "I don't know what to do." Lydia. "My mother heard everything." Marina shouting that she couldn't take it another day with that old angry. "I saw when she left with her suitcase." Marina did not say goodbye, nor look back. Lydia sank on the edge of the couch, trying to soothe the scene. Memories hit her as knives. Amelia Stepanovna's triumphant expression at the door while she herself packaged her things. The gossip for the neighbors about how finally they would have a woman to the height in the family. The acid comments about your modest salary, your culinary skills, your simple clothes. Everything came back now, like a slow-motion movie. "Dima," she finally broke the silence, a firm voice, but with an almost imperceptible tremor. "What do you want from Matt?" Swallowed hard. The fingers, once so safe, now twisted on their lap. "I don't know. I just have nowhere else to go." The friends disappeared when they heard from their mother. No one wanted to get involved with an invalid, with a family that now smelled the defeat. The money for the caregiver was running out, and Amelia Stepanovna required constant attention. Dimitri's eyes begged, but Lydia did not give in to the impulse of softening the voice. "What time is it?" She looked at the clock on the wall. "Almost midnight." "Where did you leave it?" "In the car." Below. The image struck her, an elderly, paralyzed woman, abandoned in the cold of the night. No matter how much Amelia Stepanovna had humiliated her, some things were unenforceable. "Bring her here," he ordered, already getting up. "You don't leave such a person on the street." While Dimitri descended the hasty stairs, Lydia rearranged the room in seconds. "Push. I walk furniture to make room for the wheelchair." The thought shocked. "Why am I doing this? Why don't I close the door and I pretend I didn't hear anything?" But something inside her, perhaps the memory of her own grandmother, perhaps just the basic decency, didn't allow it. The door opened again. Dimitri pushed the chair carefully, as if carried glass. Inside her, Amelia Stepanovna was a shadow of what was out, her face fallen to one side, her wretched white hair, an inert hand over her lap. Only the eyes remained the same, acute observers. But now, instead of disdain, there was something new in them, fear. A deep fear, animal, who knows that it is at the mercy of others. Seeing her, the old woman tried to speak, the lips writhing, but only a guttural, damp sound came out. A wire of saliva ran down the corner of the mouth. Dimitri wiped with a handkerchief, with a delicacy that Lydia never saw him before. She means hello, the embargoed voice explained. Steaks a little from the stroke. Lydia approached, looking straight into the former maid's eyes. Good morning, Emilia Stepanovna, he said. Dry, without a shred of heat. The woman in her chair began to sob without sound, her shoulders shaking, thick tears running down her wrinkles. He tried to form words, but only wide, desperate moans came out. She wants to ask for forgiveness. Dmitri lowered her voice, as if she had to break the fragile balance of the moment. They can stay tonight. Lydia crossed her arms. Tomorrow you get something else, thanks. Lydia, I swear that tomorrow. Don't promise, she cut. Just do it. The night was long. Emilia Stepanovna woke up every 2 hours, moaning in pain, crying. Dmitri was getting up to give medicine, murmuring words of comfort. Adjust the pillow. Across the thin wall, Lydia heard everything. His eyes wide in the darkness, not for mercy, but for a strange sense of duty and anger that had not yet dissipated. In the morning, he found Dmitri in the kitchen, trying to prepare porridge with trembling hands. His face was a mask of exhaustion. Let me do that. She took the spoon out of her hands. Sit down. Thanks. He collapsed in the chair. My mother likes oats with milk, not too thick. Do you remember? Lydia nodded. Funny how memory kept such precise details. The exact point of sugar, the tea temperature, the sarcastic comments that accompanied each meal prepared by it. Yes, I remember. I remember everything. Lydia, Dmitri rubbed her face, red eyes with tiredness. I don't know what to do. Marina took half of the money we had, said it was compensation for moral damages. The caregiver requires advance payment, and I only have for a week in your apartment. She moved the oats without looking at him. Why don't you sell? Mortgage, he sighed. 3 years left to pay off, and my mother's. I would need renovation to rent, and all the documents are with her. Made a vague gesture toward the room. She can't explain where she kept nothing. Lydia served a cup of coffee in front of him, straight, without sugar. Do you have a plain? Dmitri's eyes found hers, full of desperation that bordered on humiliation. Lydia, couldn't you help? The words came out in a breath. I know I have no right to ask, but you have always been good. And my mother, she really regrets. Lydia turned to the stove, the rigid back. Inside, a storm, the cold justice that shouted, let them sink, and something deeper, stubborn, who refused to see a human being, even the one who had destroyed it, abandoned to his own luck. I can help, he said finally, still on his back, but in my conditions, which turned, her eyes firmly, like steel. 20,000 per month. More all medicines. In cash, advanced, without delays. Do you want to be the caregiver? Dmitri didn't seem to believe it. Yes, but with rules. No whim, no flexibility. Schedules, procedures, medicines all on the clock. And I won't drool anyone. 20,000. He did the math mentally. It was less than the professional caregiver charged. Accepted. And one more thing. Lydia crossed her arms. You will help. Come here every night for hygiene routines and stay with her on weekends. It's your mother, Dima. Not mine, of course. He nodded enthusiastically. I turned every day, without fault, so it's arranged. She reached out. Dmitri squeezed her hard, her eyes damp. Thanks, Lydia. I will never forget that. The first day was a fire test. Emilia Stepanovna resisted each movement, when washed, when changing clothes, I swallowing the food. The rigid muscles, the incomprehensible speech, the eyes full of a mixture of shame and stubbornness. Lydia did not give. And today we start slowly, he said, pulling the chair ahead of his former maid. Try to raise your right arm. The old woman stared at her, panic and frustration on her face. The arm did not obey. I know it hurts. Lydia kept the tone neutral, but you have to try. Every day. Otherwise, it won't improve. Emilia Stepanovna began to cry again, the muffled sobs, her hands shaking. He tried to say something, but the words were lost in guttural sounds. No tears. Lydia was relentless. I'm not here to pity you. I'm here to make her recover, and that requires work. Did you understand? Sobs were decreasing. In the eyes of the former maid, something has changed. It was no more challenge or hatred. It was something like respect. And so the days began. At 6 in the morning, the awakening, washing, breakfast, exercise, massage, lunch, rest, more exercises, dinner, preparation to sleep. No concessions. Without exceptions. Emilia Stepanovna sometimes tried to protest, but Lydia did not hesitate. If you want to improve, you have to sweat, he repeated dryly. And gradually the old woman began to obey. Or will you spend the rest of your life in this chair? The phrase fell like a cold blade, with no space for replicas. Choice is yours. And the old woman chose. And the first week, the signs were shy, almost imperceptible, a tremor on the paralyzed fingers, a guttural sound that, with effort, turned into loose syllables. Dmitri fulfilled his word. Every night, punctual, he appeared with his face marked by the tiredness of the work, but his eyes attentive. He helped his mother in the bath, sat next to her while Lydia guided the exercises, and sometimes stood beyond the time, exchanging embarrassed looks with her ex-wife. "I can't imagine how grateful I am," he repeated, his voice hoarse with emotion. "The mother is no longer the same. It got calmer, even kind. The disease changes people," Lydia replied, wiping her hands on a cloth with mechanical gestures. "I just do my job." But the words sounded false to her, because every day something moved inside his chest. Anger, before dense as lead, had dissolved in ashes. In place, a strange clarity. That stubborn woman, who once crushed her with eyes of contempt, was now fighting to lift a spoon without shedding the soup. And Lydia, against all logic, felt impressed. A month later, the miracle, an entire, dragged but clear sentence Lude. Amelia Stepanovna's lips trembled with the effort. "Perdonate me." They were in the midst of the motorcycle exercises, with the old trying to transfer rice grains from one plate to another using only the dormant fingers. Lydia did not lift her eyes. Why, exactly, for everything. The voice broke, but the eyes, those same eyes that have already fulminated it with hatred, now shone moist. "I was bad. Cruel it was, yes," Lydia confirmed, impassive. Then, with an almost imperceptible sigh, "But it doesn't matter now. Focus on the exercise." Amelia Stepanovna smiled, a crooked, clumsy smile mobbed the half of the face still attached to the sequels of the stroke. But it was a smile. "You are strong." The words went slow, as if each cost a drop of blood. "It has always been." "I didn't see." For the first time in years, Lydia hesitated. That confession had taken her off guard, but she just nodded dryly and pushed the rice bowl back to the patient's trembling hands. "Thanks," said, as if he thanked for any compliance. "Now, 10 more repetitions. We need to recover this hand." And Amelia Stepanovna obeyed. When Dmitri arrived that night, Lydia reported progress with the coldness of a medical report. "She said a sentence today, and almost washed his face alone." His face lit up. "This is amazing. All thanks to you." The eyes shone. "I don't know how to thank with money." Lydia remembered, pragmatic. He opened the drawer from the table and waited. Dmitri did not argue. He took an envelope out of his pocket. 20,000 rubles, as agreed. She told the notes, kept them, and only then did she allow a nod. "Thanks." Then, changing the subject, "And the paperwork of your mother's apartment, managed to locate?" "Yes." He nodded. She remembered where she kept the documents. "I already started the repair to rent. It will help with expenses." "Good idea." Lydia approved. A pause. "And Marina, did you see?" Dmitri shook his head. Tight lips. "No. And I didn't care either." A sigh. "Maybe it's better that way. She always said she was not prepared for this." Gestured vago, as if this encompassed the room, the mother, the whole life dismantled and reassembled in a hurry. "And you?" Lydia asked, without thinking. "Are you ready?" No. Dmitri stared at her. In her eyes, there was no longer the shadow of the scared boy she had ever loved. There was something new, a firmness that did not exist before. "I am." Answered, without hesitation. "Thanks to you. I understood that I can handle things. That the mother can also change." Lydia did not answer, but deep down, he knew he was right. People could change, when life squeezed them against the wall and left no alternative. 2 months passed. Amelia Stepanovna already ate without help, washed her face with her own hands, transferred from the chair to the bed with a visible but determined effort. The speech still triggered, but the words came out clear enough to be understood. And, more impressive, the old woman had become grateful. "I was grateful for each glass of water, for each adjustment on the pillow." He did not complain when the pain squeezed his atrophied muscles. "And I looked at Lydia in a way that it never saw before, a mixture of respect, gratitude, and something deeper, almost maternal. Until, on a night when Dmitri had late at work, they were alone at the dinner table. Amelia Stepanovna pushed the empty plate and cleaned her lips with a napkin, her fingers still clumsy. "Lydia," he called, forcing each syllable to leave clear. "I need to say something." Lydia looked up. The spoon stopped halfway through her mouth. "I'm listening." The old woman took a deep breath. "I was always afraid." The words came slowly, as if they dragged a weight. "Fear that you love you more than me. So I did everything to separate us." Lydia remained silent, her hand still. "I was bad." Amelia Stepanovna continued, her voice shaking. "Envious. You were young, beautiful. I, old, useless. A break. It doesn't justify what I did. It doesn't justify." "No." Lydia agreed. Dried. "I know." The old man's head lowered, as if a weight of guilt pulling her down. "I caused you pain." To the Dmitri. "Myself." The eyes, damp, found those of Lydia. "Now I'm alone, and only you help me." Why, it was a fair question. Why the hell did she help that woman who stolen her the future? Lydia was slow to answer. "I don't know." Admitted, finally. Maybe because I don't want to be like you on. I don't want to hurt others just because I was hurt. Amelia Stepanovna nodded slowly. You are better than me. Said, simple. It has always been. At that moment, the bell rang. Dmitri had arrived. The conversation interrupted, but something between them had changed. An invisible wall ruins, leaving not exactly forgiveness, but understanding. The months followed. Amelia Stepanovna recovered forces. Now she walked with a walker around the house, dressed alone, prepared teas. The speech had almost returned to normal, just stumbling into more complex words. Dmitri kept the routine daily visits, weekends dedicated to the mother. Her apartment was already rented, solving the financial issues, and, punctual like a clock, he deposited the payment of Lydia in the drawer of the table, without having to ask until at night, when, after bedtime, he stayed in the kitchen with Lydia, his fingers wrapped around a cup of warm tea. You know, he started, his eyes fixed on her. I think a lot about how blind I was, how I let the mother destroy our marriage. Lydia stirred the sugar in circles without responding. I was weak. His voice broke, unwell, and I made you suffer so much, Dmitri. She interrupted him firmly. That was in the past. It is no use turning on wounds. But I want you to know, he insisted. I think about it. If you could go back, it cannot. She cut, categorical. And it's better that way. We changed. I'm not that girl who tried to please everyone. And you ironic smile. I hope it's no longer that boy who was hiding behind mom's skirts. Dmitri laughed. Bitter, you're right. Agreed. We changed. Maybe for the better. A break. Maybe we don't know. Lydia interrupted him. Soft, but uncompromising. Among us is over. Dmitri, I help your mother because I find it right, not because you want to get back to what it was. He lowered his head, accepting. I understand. Murmured, even so, thanks. For all. Almost 2 years had passed since Amelia Stepanovna had crossed Lydia's door, pushed by a wheelchair. Much had changed. The old woman had recovered almost all the mobility. She walked with a cane, took care of herself, even cooked simple dishes. The speech had returned, although sometimes still stuttered on difficult words. Lydia continued to take care of her, receiving Dmitri's payments and keeping each ruble with a plan that she only knew. And that afternoon, while helping Amelia Stepanovna sit in the armchair by the window, the old woman held her hand, a gesture that once was unthinkable. Lydia, he said, with a clear clarity, you saved my life, not only the body. Lydia did not answer, but for the first time, he allowed the other's hand to remain on his own. Because, after all, some battles were not won with hatred. They gained something much more dangerous. Peace. The purchase of his own apartment was no longer a distant dream, but a tangible reality, something that, years earlier, would have seemed impossible for a woman who could barely pay the rent of the tiny room. The routine, once imposed by the need, had become something almost natural. Morning care with medication, the afternoons filled with rehabilitation exercises, the nights of conversations that gradually lost the bitterness of the past. Amelia Stepanovna was no longer the same haughty and cruel woman who one day humiliated Lydia with a simple look. The disease and dependence had carved something new in it, a fragility that paradoxically made it more humane, more real. Until, on any afternoon, Dmitri arrived earlier than usual, with an expression that promised nothing good. Lydia, her voice was serious, but not alarmed. We need to talk. And Mom too. Her heart accelerated. What happened? Nothing bad. He raised his hands on a reassuring gesture. We just have news. Entrepreneur Aram in the room, where Amelia Stepanovna read a book by the window, as usual. The late afternoon light illuminated his trembling hands on the pages. Mom, Dmitri crouched beside her. Remember we said that when you were better, would you go back to your apartment? She nodded, closing the book carefully. I think the time has come. He hesitated, as if weighing every word. The doctor said you're already recovered enough to live alone. I will spend every day to help. Amelia Stepanovna's eyes sought Lydia and Lydia. She needs to go back to her life. Mother. Dmitri's voice was soft but firm. You've done more than we could ask. The old woman nodded slowly, but her fingers were confused about the book. I am scared. She confessed softly. It will be difficult alone. You'll make it. Lydia approached without hesitation. He learned a lot in these 2 years, and Dmitri will always be around when. Amelia Stepanovna squeezed the book against her chest, as if he could protect her from what she would come in a week. Dmitri replied, the apartment is ready. I took some things yesterday. Just miss I understood. She interrupted him, with a gesture that still kept traces of her ancient authority. Can I talk to Lydia alone? Dmitri looked at both of them surprised, but ended up agreeing and left the room. For a long moment, only the distant sound was heard from the traffic outside. Amelia Stepanovna breathed slowly, but also organized the words, but also the emotions that accompanied them. Lydia. Finally, she said, you saved my life. Not only the body, I just did my job. The answer came out automatic, but the tone was different, milder, less defensive. No, the old man shook her head. You could have been avenging. It could have been cruel, but that's not how you are. You are better. Lydia sat beside her, looking into her hands that once trembled with anger just to touch that woman. You know, Amelia Stepanovna, he began, with a calm that surprised her. In these 2 years, I learned that revenge does not bring happiness. It only makes us equal to those who hurt us. Do you forgive me? The question was straightforward. Bluntly, Lydia hesitated. Could you forgive the years of humiliation, attempts to destroy your marriage, the words that, like knives, cut deep? I don't keep a grudge, he said finally, and I think we're even. You have suffered enough to understand what it is like to be at the mercy of others. I hope this has made you a better person. Amelia Stepanovna nodded slowly, done, murmured, and I'll miss you. Those words, spoken with sincerity that did not admit no doubt, reached Lydia in a way that she did not expect me to. Admitted, softly, it's strange, isn't it? For the first time, they smiled to each other without shadows, without the weight of the old wounds. A week later, Dmitri took her mother back to her apartment. Amelia Stepanovna said goodbye to Lydia with tears in her eyes, thanking, promising to call. Lydia helped tidy up the last things, gave detailed instructions on the medicines, the exercises, the routine. When the door closed behind them, he was alone in a silence that suddenly seemed deafening. 2 years taking care of someone else had gotten used to a filled life for obligations, at times, for a constant presence. Now the empty apartment echoed his own loneliness. But life, as always, followed. Lydia returned to work full-time, rediscovered friends that time had removed, began attending the pool on Saturday mornings. The money saved during those years of care was sufficient to enter its own apartment, small, but yours. Dmitri called from time to time, thanking, telling news of the mother. Once, even suggested that they were. She refused politely. What had existed between them belonged to another time, to other versions of themselves. A year later, sitting in the room of a real estate broker, Lydia signed the buying papers of the two-bedroom, sunny apartment in a new neighborhood. Congratulations on the acquisition. The broker smiled, extending his hand. Excellent investment. This property will only value. Thanks. She returned the smile. It wasn't. Long way here. As he left the office, he took a deep breath. In his pocket, the weight of the keys was real, concrete. For the first time in life, something was just hers. He took his cell phone to call his mother and share the news. It was then that he saw Dmitri's lost call. He hesitated for a second before returning the call. Dima said, when he answered, what happened? His voice sounded shaken, as if he had cried. Lydia, break. Mom had another stroke. Doctors say the state is critical. The world stopped. I'm sorry, Dima. She squeezed her eyes, as if it could contain the pain that climbed through the chest. What can I do? She asked to say. Her voice failed. Vet loves you, and Ned is grateful for everything. Lydia was silent, not knowing what to answer. In 2 years, Amelia Stepanovna had ceased to be an enemy. It wasn't a friend, no, but it was someone who had crossed his way in a way that had changed everything. Someone who, in the end, was also changed. I go, he said firmly. Which hospital is she? Lydia's life was beginning to reorganize. Sitting at the kitchen table of her new apartment, she reviewed the business plan that had been born during the months she had taken care of her former maid. Now those ideas gained concrete form. Private home to the elderly, he said aloud, as if testing the sound of words. Careful, the phone vibrated at the table. I broke her message. I found a great option for your project. Two-story house on the outskirts, 1,500 m2 land, needs cosmetic reforms. Affordable price. Interesting. Lydia did not hesitate. He had been looking for the ideal place for months, and something told him that this could be the missing piece. Yes, I want to see. When can you visit? The answer was immediate. Today, at 14H, to serve. Perfect. While getting ready for the meeting, his mind listed everything he needed to check. State of hydraulic and electrical installations, room distribution, possibility of renovations, accessibility for people with reduced mobility. 2 years alongside Amelia Stepanovna had taught him, in practice, every detail that made a difference in the life of an elderly man, and she would leave nothing at random. The house exceeded its expectations. Large, with large windows that flooded the environments of light, high ceiling, and a well-distributed plant. The ground floor would be ideal for common areas and adapted rooms, the superior for more independent guests and the team. The land around asking for a welcoming garden with safe paths for walks and benches in the shadow of the trees. How many rooms can you do here? He asked, walking the upstairs with his eyes. With intelligent reform, even 20, replied the broker. In addition to collective cafeteria, nursing room, Doctor's office and the license to turn it into a social assistance institution. No problem. The property has already been built as the elderly home. It was only being used as a residence in recent years. Lydia walked slowly through the rooms, imagining clear walls, functional furniture, corridor support bars, wide enough wheelchairs. I take it, he said, with a conviction that admitted no doubt. When can we sign the papers? Did you go crazy? Svetlana shook her head as she helped Lydia organize the paperwork the next day. Where did you take money from such a project? I saved it for the time I took care of Amelia Stepanovna, Lydia explained, without taking her eyes off the documents, in addition to the rents of Dima's apartment. And I got a financing as a social entrepreneur, with low interest rates. But why a home for the elderly? He insisted, his friend, incredulously. After all you passed with that witch. Lydia paused. This question chased her for months. You know, it started slowly. In these 2 years, I have learned things that no course could teach me. In this country, aging with dignity is a privilege, not a right. Many older people or abandoned family members cannot or do not want to take care of them. And public asylums, do you know the conditions? Svetlana snorted, skeptical. So now are you going to save all the old men from Russia? Not all. Lydia smiled. Only those I can reach. I know how to do the right care, with respect, preserving autonomy, the story of each one. And there is justice in that. You know, Amelia Stepanovna hardened me, taught me not to weaken. Now, I can use it for something bigger. Svetlana shook her head but didn't argue. He knew her friend. When Lydia decided something, not even an army would make her back. The next 6 months were a whirlwind. Reforms, licenses, purchase of equipment, hiring. Lydia plunged into every detail from the arrangement of furniture to medication hours. But it was in the team selection that he dedicated the most time. Each candidate was interviewed in person, and she made clear her philosophy from the first minute. Here, it's not just about doing tasks, he told a young nurse. You need to see each guest as a person, with their memory, their habits, their dignity. He understands. I understand. The girl nodded. I worked in a common asylum. There they treated the elderly as burdens. This is wrong exactly. Here it will be different. The inauguration of home care was scheduled for early May. Lydia found it symbolic to start in spring when life was reborn around everything around. The nerves betrayed it. It checked every detail for the 100th time, but everything was ready. Cozy rooms, spacious cafeteria, library and TV. Quit doctor's office. The day before, while doing one last inspection, the phone rang. It was Dimahai. His voice sounded insecure. I heard you are opening a home for the elderly. Yes, confirmed Lydia. Tomorrow is the inauguration. That's amazing. There was genuine admiration in his tone. After all, you chose to dedicate yourself to taking care of people and the elderly. Mom would be proud. Lydia fell silent. Amelia Stepanovna's name still caused her a mixture of emotions. Can I go tomorrow? Asked Dima, surprising her. I wanted to see what you created. She hesitated. Only a second, of course. The ceremony is at 11 a.m., but you can arrive early. I will take a tour with you. Dima appeared at 9:30 a.m. when the team finished the latest preparations. It was different, thinner, with premature white strands in the hair, but the eyes had a new firmness, as if something inside it had solidified. Did you do all this alone? He asked, observing the large hall with comfortable sofas and plants that brought life to the environment. Not exactly, Lydia smiled. I have an exceptional team. Come on, I show you the rest. They traveled the home together, and she pointed, proudly, every detail designed to make that place special. Wide doors, non-slip floors, bathroom support bars, emergency bells next to each bed. Unbelievable, Dima murmured, shaking her head. You did everything Mom dreamed when she was sick. I learned a lot taking care of her, Lydia answered. Simple. Back in the hall, Dima took a thick envelope out of the Malaton. I want to make a donation, he said, extending him for the home. She looked at the envelope. Surprised. No need. Dima, I need to, he insisted. Mom left me insurance. I'm sure she would like part of this money to be for such a cause. Yuji accepted the envelope after a moment. Thanks. Let's use this for rehab equipment. Dima nodded, staring at her with intensity. You changed, Lydia. It got stronger. Safer. We've all changed, she said softly. And you know, I am grateful to the most difficult parts. They brought me here. He understood what she didn't say. I had also reviewed a lot. Mother's illness, death, the escape of responsibility. I got a new job, he continued, as if he had to fill the silence. Now I'm a manager in a construction company, he said, with a discreet pride in his eyes. And I met someone, an architect. We worked together on a project. Lydia smiled. Genuine. This is wonderful. Dima. I'm happy for you. And you? He asked after a break. Is there anyone? Shook her head. Serene, not yet. Now all my energies are in Zabota. But who knows what the future reserve is silence. Not an embarrassing silence, but the one that only exists among people who have already divided too much to need words. Two different paths, two lives that followed ahead after they had intertwined in the past. Zabota's first months were the most arduous. The guests arrived slowly, 3, then 5. Until late summer there were 10 lives under their care, each with their history, their crazes, their essence. Maria Petrovna, a former math teacher, woke up at 5 in the morning and demanded breakfast at 7. Gennady Alexeyevich, retired colonel, spent the nights telling cases of war and watched his tidying with military rigor. Sofia Andreevna, fragile and lost in the midst of Alzheimer's, called for her dead sister for decades as if she were just in the next room. Lydia knew each by name. He knew about allergies, the preferences at the table, the night fears. He created personalized care plans, organized activities that aroused smiles, listened to complaints and desires with a patience that only those who were on the other side can have. You're not like the other owners of places like this, Sofia Andreevna told him in those rare moments of lucidity. This friendly hand followed. You really take care. Lydia lowered her eyes for a moment. She remembered as well as needing help and receiving only impatience, or worse, indifference. No one deserves to be treated like this, especially when life has already taken so much. The faded eyes of the elderly studied it, penetrating despite their age. You've been through difficult things, haven't you? I passed, Lydia admitted, but they taught me to see what others don't see. Sofia Andreevna squeezed her fingers with a surprising force. Do you know what is the secret of a happy life? He whispered, as if shared a treasure. Transform pain into wisdom and the disappointments into strength. Lydia was paralyzed. That woman, so small, so lost in her own thoughts most of the time, had just given her a lesson that whole books couldn't. Thank you, he murmured, squeezing his hand wrinkled back. I will try not to forget that. A year later, Zabota was already a reference in the city. 15 busy beds, waiting list, and Lydia dreaming of the expansion. Buy the land next door, build a new pavilion. The numbers worked, but it was not for the money she moved. He had found his mission, to give dignity to whom society often hides. Create a place where old age was not synonymous with abandonment but respect. She was reviewing papers on her small office when the secretary announced a visit. There is a man here. He says it is a personal matter. Lydia lifted her eyes and saw Dima at the door. He was different. Impeccable suit, accurately cut hair, a confidence that was not arrogant but conquered. Hi, he said, with a shy smile. Sorry to appear like this. Without warning, no problem. He said the chair in front of him. Sit down. Did something happen? Dima shook her head. No. Okay. I just wanted to give you a news personally. He paused. I'm getting married in a month. Lydia looked at him surprised, then smiled. Sincere congratulations. Are you that architect you said? Yes. Dialga. His eyes shone. She is amazing, strong, independent, but at the same time so generous. You would like her. I'm glad you, Dima. In truth, he observed it, and there was a mixture of gratitude and a longing that no longer hurt. You know, Lydia, sometimes I think about what would have happened if I hadn't heard my mother at the time, if I had the courage to fight for our marriage. Don't do that, she interrupted softly. The past doesn't change, and who knows, perhaps everything happened as I should. Look at us now. We find our ways. We become stronger. Dima nodded, as if we quiet an old ghost. You are right. I just wanted you to know I'll never forget what you did for me. And my mother. I don't, she said softly. It was an important part of my life. Difficult, but important. He took an envelope out of his pocket. I wanted to invite you to the wedding. Olga insisted, smiled. She wants to meet you. I told our story to her. Lydia held the hesitant invitation. A part of it wanted to refuse. Why turn around the past? But another part knew it was the chance to close that chapter for good. No silences, no words not spoken. I will, he decided finally. Thanks for the invitation. Dima and Olga's wedding was simple but elegant. Lydia watched, sitting among the guests, while her ex-husband promised loyalty to the new woman, tall, elegant, with a smart look and a smile that conveyed calm. Thank you for coming, Olga told him during the cocktail, with a hot voice. Dima talks a lot about you. I hope not everything was bad. Lydia laughed. Light on the contrary. Really, Olga insisted, now serious. He says you taught him more about responsibility than anyone else. That, when you separated, it was for his weakness, for not having known to impose himself on the mother. And that, even so, you were there when she needed it most. He paused. That says a lot about you. Lydia did not know what to answer. He had never seen herself as a teacher in Dima's life. If something learned, It was with their own wounds. Your Pananito is admirable, Olga continued, changing the subject gently. I read about him in the newspaper. It is noble to dedicate life to taking care of those who have already given so much. It's my vocation, said Lydia. Simple. Sometimes we need to go through the fire to find out what really matters. Olga studied her carefully, or you Happy's question took her off guard. Happy, was this concrete, tangible thing there, or was it just a set of small moments? Yes, he said after a moment. I have a job that I love. People who depend on me and make me feel useful. Friends who support me. Maybe it's not the happiness I dreamed of 20, but it's my happiness. Authentic. Olga smiled in an unexpected gesture, hugged her tightly. Thank you, he whispered, because you're who you are. On the way back to Zabota that night, Lydia felt something came loose inside him, a load that had been carrying for years, finally put in place. He walked down the corridor, peered the dining room, where the nurse Irina served the night tea, and climbed to her office. On the table, a folder with expansion projects, more 15 beds, more 15 lives to welcome, more 15 stories to make a little less lonely. He opened the folder and began to analyze the documents. There was a lot of work ahead, many plans, lots of hope. Life followed not as she had ever imagined, but beautiful in her own way, full of meaning. Later, he made his night round in the rooms, stopping to adjust a blanket here, turn off a light there. Lydia knew. It was exactly where it should be. Sofia Andreevna, sitting on her armchair by the window, turned to Lydia with a clear, almost prophetic look, one of those rare moments when the mist of disease dissipated and the essence of women, forged by decades of life, emerged with stunning clearness. You are different today, said the elderly woman, as if an invisible burden had finally been deposited on the floor. Lydia smiled, settling beside her on the small wooden bench. Maybe it was really, after all, he had been in his ex-husband's marriage that same morning. And it hurt, asked Sofia Andreevna, with a sharp frankness that only the years give to those who no longer have time for palavers. No, answered Lydia, sincere. It hurt, yes, but it hurt right, like when the last page of a book that has long serves us, and finally we can open another, with white leaves and future smell. The old lady nodded, as if she already knew the answer. Do you know what I have learned in these long years? His voice, shaky but firm, filled the silence of the room. The past must be remembered but not inhabited, because as long as you live in it, the present flows between your fingers and tomorrow never arrives. Lydia looked at her, impressed by the lucidity of that fragile woman, who sometimes forgot her own name, but who, in the warmth of conscience, uttered truths so deep that they seemed to tear her chest. You are very wise, Sofia Andreevna, he murmured, squeezing the wrinkled hand of the elderly woman. I'm not wise, my dear. The old man shook her head, and a malicious smile played on her fine lips. I only lived too long and I saw too much things. But you're young, beautiful. You have a lifetime ahead. Don't spend a minute on regrets. Life. A year later, the asylum cautiously celebrated its second birthday. The courtyard was transformed. Long tables covered with plaid towels, colorful garlands swinging in the wind, balloons attached to the tree branches. Guests, employees, family members all gathered to celebrate not only the survival of what Lydia had created, but their flourishing. She was in the center of the circle, receiving hugs, greetings, grateful looks. His smile was genuine, his posture safe. No longer the woman who one day shaking by signing the divorce papers, but the owner of that singular place, where old age was not a decline, but a new way of belonging. Among the guests, Dmitri and Olga. They brought as a gift a modern physiotherapy equipment, still wrapped in bright paper. This will help your residents recover faster, said Olga, extending the certificate with an elegant gesture. Thank you so much, said Lydia, moved. It's a generous gift. You deserve it, Dmitri murmured, lower, as if the words cost. What you do here is amazing. When the night fell and the last guest said goodbye, Lydia was alone in her office. On the table, a green envelope with the notary stamp, the documentation to record the memory of the Heart Foundation, its new project, dedicated to supporting the elderly abandoned by the family. His finger slid on the roll, and the memories came in waves, not as ghosts, but as a landmark of a path that had shaped it. He remembered the acute pain when Dmitri left her for another, and Amelia Stepanovna planted on the door with that triumphant smile. From the years he has learned to rebuild himself, to lift a career from scratch, to trust himself again, of the strenuous months taking care of the sick mother-in-law, when each day it was a battle between the weakened body and the soul that refused to break, of forgiveness hard, bloody, but in the end, he returned his freedom. All that had to make her who she was now, a woman of steel seasoned by the loss, who had transformed pain into purpose. An entrepreneur whose business does not mediate success for profits, but for played lives. Someone who understood, like few, the value of scars because they taught to differentiate the piety from dignity, the charity of respect. When Amelia Stepanovna died, Dmitri cried shamelessly at the wake, the wet face of tears. Lydia remained by her side, impassive. There was no triumph in his silence, just a serene sadness and the certainty that a cycle was closed. For years taking care of his mother-in-law not only earned him a financial inheritance, but something much more precious, the discovery of his own mission. Now, 2 years after the inauguration of the asylum, she could say without a doubt she had found her place in the world. His venture thrived, the plans multiplied, and his heart throbbed with a quiet joy to know that his work became a little less cruel every day for those who had already given so much. Dmitri, once sunk in alcohol and discouragement, had gifted herself after her mother's death. Now I called from time to time, asking for advice, telling news about life with Olga. Lydia responded with a distant courtesy, without allowing the shadows of the past to obscure his present. He closed the document folder and approached the window. Outside, the asylum garden unfolded on well-kept paths, varnished wooden benches, flowers exploding in color. A refuge where old age could be lived with grace, surrounded by beauty and affection. Lydia smiled. Amelia Stepanovna used to tell the neighbors that she had an unworthy daughter-in-law. Today, this unworthy had created exactly the kind of place Amelia herself had dreamed of her last days, a home where dignity was not lost with memory. Life, in its subtle irony, had proved fair. The phone on the table vibrated, cutting its reflections. One more connection, a family member interested in a vacancy. Another story about to intertwine with yours. Salim, be careful. Lamilla Andreevna on the phone, she said, answering. A new day began, and with him, new responsibilities, new faces, new chances of doing what he always knew how to be, his gift, taking care of those that the world often forgets, with the same reverence that is dedicated to a garden, because all life, no matter how fragile or marked by errors, deserves to be watered with respect. It was in this conviction that his strength lived. Your wisdom, your peace,